fundamental attributional error phenomenon. I am Renee Vong. I will be your co-host for today. So I have a master's in psychological research methods. My areas of expertise are with anxiety, breakups, relationships, and stress. The host for today is Shubhangi. I'll let her introduce herself. You can go ahead.
Thank you so much, Renee. Uh, good good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining in. I'm Shabangi, and I work as a senior psychologist with MindTribe. I'm glad that you guys are here today. I hold a master's degree in clinical psychology, and I'm also currently pursuing a PhD in psychology. I'm trained to deal with issues such as anxiety, self-esteem issues, depression, relationship issues, so on and so forth. And I would be conducting the workshop today along with Remy. We'll just wait for a couple more minutes and then we'll start. Okay, so till the time that we are waiting for others to join in, I just have a question for all of you. Uh, just imagine that somebody cuts you off in a traffic or somebody does not reply to your text immediately. What's the first thought you have about them? You can maybe raise your hands or you can drop it in your chat box. I'll repeat the question again. uh, if somebody cuts you in the traffic, or if somebody does not reply to your message, what is the first thought that you have about them? Yes, Ramya?
Yes, Shubhangi. My first thought, with regard to me, I would think, okay, the person would be busy somewhere and they would get back or they would give me a call back.
Okay. And what about if somebody cuts us in the traffic?
It's very evident that that's not the time and place to have a conversation or a chat. They would get back eventually.
Okay. No, you in the traffic. By that, I mean, you are in the middle of a traffic and a car cuts by, not waiting for their turn.
Okay. In that case, yes, it's very natural that you do sometimes get a bit irritated,
Hmm.
frustrated as to when people don't follow the lane discipline.
Yeah.
Yeah. But still, for me, I won't take it to that extreme. That's okay. So we
Okay.
all have been, there through that scenarios as well. So yeah.
Hmm. Okay. Okay, so a lot of us would think that maybe there was a network issue, maybe they were in a hurry, and we would not think much about it. So I would like to ask that how many of you, would blame the individual that, what is this behavior? Why are they cutting me in traffic? Shouldn't they be following the rules, etc., etc.? How many of us feel that way or would think in that sense? Please raise your hands. Okay, Radhika would think that way. Who else? Suti would think that way. Okay. Yes, Sally. Hmm. Okay. And about not texting you back, we would think that they're maybe careless or they don't care or they're arrogant. Okay, Pragya. Okay. Mayuri said she would get a little upset but wouldn't blame them. All right. So for all those who would think like that about them, I have a question for you. If we reverse the roles, and if we flip it, and if it is you on the other side, you are the one who cut someone off in the traffic, or you're the one who's not replying to somebody or replying late to somebody, what narrative would you have, or what reason would you have? You can mention in the chat box, or yes, Shruti. Okay, you can mention maybe in the chat box or raise your hand so that you can unmute yourself. Nobody? What would we think? What would be the reaction or the rationale that we would give if we are on the other side? As in, if we are the ones who's cutting in the traffic, or if we are the ones who's replying late. Yes, Leah?
Usually, I tend to always not reply on a phone,
Mm-hmm.
and tend to see it later. And sometimes I also open the message without realizing that I have and not reply. So I've always been that type of person who doesn't reply on time and thing. So I kind of understand when someone does not reply.
Okay.
So I mean, there's I mean, I could take the blame because I consciously or unconsciously don't reply.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that I don't want to, it's just that I sometimes I have so many things in my mind that I forget to reply, or it's just that I don't use my phone as much, or I don't know what to reply, so I don't reply. And that's no excuse, and I should
Yeah.
improve on that. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, great. Yes, Ramya?
Yeah, so if putting myself in the other person's shoes, it would be something like not replying or not taking anybody's calls or anything of that sort. Yes, I would. Later, I would certainly give them a call, apologize for
Mm-hmm.
my action, and I would, yes, there would be a explanation to that as to why I wasn't able to at that point of time. So, yeah,
Okay.
that would be.
Great. Yes, Radhika?
I would, if I'm not able to reply to somebody and I'm behaving like I'm cutting off the traffic, uh,
Mm-hmm.
in my mind, I am actually creating priorities. So
Mm-hmm.
right now, it is not exactly important for me to reply, but to
Mm-hmm.
reach somewhere or respond to some other things. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I also acknowledge the fact that people can be angry with me and they are allowed to feel that way.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, so somebody said that they would feel that they're overstimulated and they don't want to deal with anybody right now. Mayuri says, I guess I would apologize for replying late. Shruti maybe wouldn't react that much and think that it is normal. It's okay, it's fine. And Just would, she says that they don't intentionally ignore anybody and they always have their phone in hands waiting for texts. Okay, so what we're trying to do in here is that whenever it is about somebody else and the actions that they're doing and anything that the way they're reacting, we always attribute it to their personality. Somebody came late to the office, they're lazy, they're careless, right? Somebody didn't reply, they don't care. Uh, you know, somebody is maybe reacting in a certain way. Yes, as Kanvi mentioned, that we label them, right? We do not really look at the situations, the circumstances that they might be in, which led them to react in a certain way. However, when we flip this side and when we are on the other side as individuals, we always attribute it to a situation. That, I'm late not because I'm lazy or careless, but because there was traffic, or maybe because I was not keeping well. I couldn't reply because I was caught up with something. So how we always give us that benefit of doubt by shifting it to the circumstance, but when it is about other people, we just talk about their personality. We label them that, okay, this is who they are, this is what they are. So that is what we would be diving in today. Uh, you know, how we label others, how we attribute, and this phenomena is known as the fundamental attributional error, wherein when it comes to the other person, we do not really take into consideration about their situations or circumstances, and we just label them and their personality. That okay, this is who they are. So I have a couple of examples for you. Sometimes when we mess up, when someone messes up, we say, hey, you suck, or you're terrible, or you're this, you're that, you're so careless. But when we mess up, we have all sorts of reasons and rationales that it wasn't my fault, or it was raining, there was traffic, uh, my alarm didn't go off, so on and so forth. When something happens, when there is an achievement, we take it on ourselves that, okay, I'm a genius, I was great. But when it is with the other person, we just say, oh, they just got lucky, right? So this is what we would be aim to navigate through in today's webinar, wherein we understand why it happens, what are the reasons, and how can we not indulge in such thinking process or thoughts, and what are some of the practical tools that can help us stop doing it. Because in hindsight, it also damages our relationships with individuals and our peace of mind, our emotions. It disrupts everything. This particular pattern of thinking. Okay, we have yes, Ramya.
Yes, Shubhangi. So, like on similar lines on what you said, basically
Hmm.
when it is the other person who is at the receiving end and they are responsible for certain thing, we overlook the situational factors and
Mm,
focusing more on the dispositional factors. So
yeah.
so that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, that's absolutely correct. We start blaming their character, we start blaming their personality, but when it comes to us, we just blame the situation. And that is exactly what we're going to talk about in today's topic. Now, very quickly, when we talk of fundamental attribution error, it is our tendency to really overlook the situation factor that I've already mentioned and focus on the individual's personality. And in a way, we also judge others. We judge their behaviors, we judge them for what they're doing, and we do not really consider the situations or the circumstances that might be associated or that might have led them to behave in a particular way. Because of the fundamental attribution error, we often believe that people do bad things because they are inherently bad, and we are inclined to ignore the situation factors. So if you really look at the very simpler, if you really break down, okay, somebody's mic is turned on.
Rory, please turn off your mic.
Okay. Okay. Yes. So we were talking about, if we really break it down to simpler terms. So imagine we're at a restaurant and we come across a waiter who's very rude to us. And what's the instant thought that we have? You know, that, oh my God, he's so rude. They do not have any courtesy. And that is an attribution to his personality. But what we do not know is that maybe his shift started at 7 a.m. Maybe he hasn't had his lunch. Maybe two other waiters called in sick and he has to juggle with a lot of tables over there. Now, when we take a look at these situational factors, then his behavior, the same behavior, looks less like rudeness and more like exhaustion. So, this is what happens when we change our attribution just to the personality to a wider view of the situations and the circumstances, right? So, the gap in here is between what we see, which is the surface, versus the hidden reality, is where the fundamental attribution error plays. Okay, so it is all about what we see versus the hidden reality. So the gap is where the fundamental attribution error takes place or happens. In other words, it is also sort of a mental shortcut. So I'll tell you something very honestly. Our brain is very lazy. It doesn't like to do a lot of work. right? It always chooses the path which is more easier, more convenient, more familiar. So, because of that, our brains are constantly trying to explain people's behavior quickly so that we can take a decision fast. The problem is we usually go for the easy explanation, which is their personality, and ignore the more complex one, which would be the situation. So, in short, to sum this all up, when it is about me, my actions are shaped by my situation. When it is about them, their actions reflect who they are. So then it becomes about them, their personality. This bias is everywhere. We can find it in families, friendships, workplaces, in social media. And if we do not check it, if it is left unchecked, it changes how we judge, blame, and relate to others. Okay. Now, I have a very small YouTube video of a minute. It will help you understand what fundamental attribution error actually is.
Today we are going to talk about the fundamental attribution error. What exactly is the fundamental attribution error, and why is it so important? Let's look at an example. Say your friend Bob takes you to a party, and at that party he introduces you to his other friend Eric. Eric is particularly curt and seems uninterested in meeting you. He comes off as unfriendly. Chances are your first reaction is to assume Eric is just an unfriendly person. A real jerk, if you will, right? Well, what if Eric is just having a really tough day? Maybe he broke up with his girlfriend, or maybe someone close to him has passed away. Then you may think Eric's behavior is excusable because, well, he's just having a bad day. I guess Eric isn't that bad a guy, huh? Well, this mix up in judgment is a perfect example of the fundamental attribution error. In other words, people tend to place more emphasis on internal explanations rather than considering the circumstances. So next time you meet someone at a party, don't be so quick to judge them.
Shibangi, I think you might be on mute.
Oh, all right. So sorry. Okay, so I was talking about, let's talk about why it happens and what goes behind. Yeah, so what goes behind this? What is the thought process? What are the reasons that it takes place? Why do we think in this direction at all? The first one is the just world hypothesis. Uh, we like to believe that the world is a fair place, right? Wherein good things happen to good people, bad things happen to bad people, and end of the story. That's it. So this sort of thinking really makes us feel that if something bad is happening to somebody, it is because of who they are, right? Because this belief helps us to feel safe, right? Because if the world is fair, bad things won't happen to us because we are good. So this sort of thinking or this line of thinking makes it easier for us to adapt to FAE, which is fundamental attribution error, because if something bad is happening to somebody, it is because of the very fact that they are bad. They're not good individuals. So when something unfair happens to someone, our brain really bends the reality. Something bad happened to her because she was a particular way. You know, she was assaulted maybe because she wore something which was not appropriate. It is easier to blame the victim than face the scary truth that bad things can happen to anybody. Okay. Next is lack of effortful judgment. As I already said and mentioned, that a brain is lazy. It doesn't really take. Uh, it doesn't really want to take that pain to think and you know go towards a complicated explanation. So the best way to go about it is that it goes to the easiest explanation. So our brain saves energy. Thinking deeply would take a lot of work. So we jump to quickest conclusions, quickest explanations. He's careless. End of the story. They're terrible people. End of the story. They're not serious about this. End of the story. So on and so forth. But if we pause to ask ourselves, could something else be going on? Could there be something, a different explanation for what is happening? That takes effort. And most of us, we do not want to invest that much of effort unless and until we are trained or we think in the direction or we are reminded, right? Next is salience of actor. Salience means what stands out. The person's behavior and personality is something which is very much out there, very much visible, right? But the situation that is behind isn't, right? And nobody is already explaining us that, okay, this was my situation, so I behave that way. No, the behavior is just right there in front of you. So, for example, when you see somebody yelling at the cashier, what stands out? The angry person, the fact that he's yelling. We do not really see the situation. We don't see what happened, what led to this. Maybe they lost their job or the cashier overcharged them multiple times. It could be anything. But what do we see? What do we notice? The angry person. We blame what we see and not what's hidden. Then, of course, there are cultural differences because culture shapes how we think, how we perceive things, how we perceive the world around us. So, in individualistic cultures like the USA, the focus is on personal responsibility. They control their own life, you control your own life, so your mistakes are your fault. This is the perception that they have. But in collectivistic cultures like India, Japan, the focus is on context, on relationships. Maybe his family needed him. Maybe the system failed him. So we give people a benefit of doubt, right? Neither is good or bad, but it explains why some cultures are more prone to fundamental attribution error than the others. Now, let's have a look at some of the examples where FAE takes place. So, usually, victims of uh, sexual assault are often blamed for the attack, as others suggest that it was the victim's own behavior that caused the assault. You know, we have statements like, she shouldn't have been out so late. Here, we explain the attack by blaming the victim, ignoring the perpetrator or the systematic failure or the poor safety. We ignore everything. We just attribute the attack to the individual's personality. Maybe she was too outgoing. And now who decides, right? If you really think about it, who decides who should be outgoing, who shouldn't be? And is it really a reason? You know? So that is something that we need to think about. Now, if I ask you, are there more letters or more words that begin with the letter K, or there are more words that has K as the first letter? What do you think? Please raise your hands. What do you think? Are there more words that begin with the letter K, or do we have more words with letter K as their third letter? Yes, Kanvi?
I guess like since we have like it would be a perspective like we can't measure both things because since we are already restricted to a place India, so the dictionary book is large enough, so it will be difficult to measure them, and it can be either way according to me.
Okay. So I think Dvijapriya said that I think there would be more with the letter K. Just an assumption. Okay. So Janvi said I think there would be more with letter K, more words that begin with letter K, right? So just to make it easier, please raise your hands for all everybody who thinks that we would have more words that begin with letter K as compared to the words that has K as the third letter? Okay. So a lot of us believe that we have more words that begin with letter K. But let me tell you something, guys. This is what FAE talks about. In reality, there are more words that has third word, third letter as K, as compared to words that start with K. Okay. But the question is, why did we say that that there would be more words with letter K? Because that's the easiest thing to say. That is the easiest way. We don't have to think too much. That's the easiest path that we can take, which is why we think that way. So when we are asked this question, a lot of us said that uh, most people would say that the starting, that that there would be more words that starts with letter K, because that is what comes easily to the mind. Similarly, in life, we notice the obvious, as we already discussed, which is the person's or the individual's action, their reactions, their behaviors, because that is what is visible to the naked eyes. And in that process, we ignore something which is less visible, that is the situation. All right. So I think, yeah, Sunita said that perception of each person is different. Absolutely. That is right. Uh, Mayuri says that our brain goes to conclusion without any solid proof. Yes, because that is the easier way. Okay. Now let's move ahead. Let's have a look at another example. So, teenage drivers' tendency to attribute their own risky behavior to situational factors such as running late, but they attribute peers' risky behavior to personal factors such as trying to act cool, right? So, when you talk to a teen, and they would often explain their speeding as maybe I was late for the class, or I wasn't so fast, I wasn't rash driving, it was under my control, or I had an urgency, or etc. etc. They would always attribute the risky driving to situational factors. However, when talked about their peers' risky driving, they would say that okay, maybe they were trying to act cool, or they were doing it just for fun, or they were doing it because that is who they are, right? So we give ourselves excuses but assume others act from flaws. Now, we already had a word about it, that people, culture plays a very important role in this. People from individualistic culture are more prone to it, are more prone to that thinking pattern. You know, they're more prone to say that okay, they are lazy or they are careless. But when we talk of a more collectivistic culture, such as Indian cultures, you know, we also give a lot of value to the situational factors as well. Maybe it was the family responsibilities, maybe she was occupied with something, maybe she was busy. So, a very good example is the first question that I asked you about cutting off the traffic and not getting replies. A lot of you said that maybe you'll understand. Maybe you wouldn't think much of it. Maybe, and a lot of you said that you would not attribute it to their personality and you would take into consideration the situational factors, right? And that is also because that is how our culture is, that is how our culture has shaped our perception. Now, let's talk about if we have this mindset, what happens then? Okay. First is self becomes a victim, which means we keep on seeing life as it is unfair and we are always at the receiving end. We are the victims. We do not have control, so on and so forth. Right? Then dysfunctional relationships because misunderstandings pile up. We assume intent rather than clarify. So, for example, again, taking on the same example, if somebody didn't reply, we assume that, okay, they never intended to reply or they never intended to maintain that relationship. So, because of those assumptions, our relationships start getting strained. Because we do not really focus on clarifying. We do not really talk about communicating because, again, that is a more complex way. And the easier way is to just label, to assume. Then, extreme emotions, wherein there is anger, bitterness, resentment. All of these emotions rise when we think others are just bad, they're terrible people, right? And because we have these emotions, we have bitterness within ourselves. We react also in a certain way. We're not optimistic. We do not look at the brighter side of the things. And the perception as a whole changes. Then dissatisfaction in life, which is constant frustration with people, because if we feel that people are bad or people are inherently bad, so of course we'll be frustrated with them. And if we are constantly frustrated with people, we wouldn't want to communicate or interact with them, and it erodes our peace and joy. Now, a couple of examples how we judge others. You know, Anna is unreliable. She can't even attend a meeting on time. The other person is saying Ben is incompetent. He can't finish his projects on time. So we attribute a person's behavior to their character without taking into account the limitations or the constraints that might be operating within. This is another pictorial representations. Do you believe in luck? Only in bad luck. How else can I explain the losses I have made in stock? So this individual, instead of focusing on maybe what he could have done personally better, he's just attributing everything to the situation, right? And when we keep on attributing everything to the situation in our, you know, in our part of the story, then we would also try less. We would procrastinate because, we would feel that we do not have any control over anything. So what's the point of working towards it or working hard for it? So that is another thing. Now, let's talk about how can we overcome. First is awareness. Half the battle is knowing that the error exists, knowing that there's a faulty pattern in the way that we perceive. When you feel that the judgment is rising, maybe catch yourself there. Am I doing fundamental attribution errors? Am I thinking in that direction? Is it the right way of thinking? Have I taken everything into account before coming to that conclusion or making that judgment? So awareness is very important. Awareness about who we are, what our perceptions is, and how are we thinking or perceiving things. Next is empathy. Empathy and sympathy are different. Empathy is stepping into somebody else's shoes. Okay. Perceiving things from their side of the story. What might the person be facing that I can't see? What might be happening? What could be possibly going on with that individual? Just trying to understand the other individual by putting them in their shoes. Sometimes it so happens that when somebody is not behaving according to how we would prefer, we often feel or think that, okay, what must have happened? Maybe they were busy because if I were busy, I would be reacting the same way. So that is empathy, trying to understand the situation from other individuals' perspective, from keeping them in your shoes, from understanding that if I were there in the person's place, how would I react? Why would I react in that particular way? Then we have objectivity. Okay. Just imagine that you're a third person watching. You're not involved in that situation, but you're just a viewer. Would you still think the same way? Would you still make the same judgment? Because when we are in the situation and when something happens to us on an individual level, we do not really think it through, right? We are so agitated and so, I would say, immersed in our own emotions that we do not really think about the other individual. So, in that situation, it is very much natural to have a perception tainted or to have a different perception. But similarly, if we remove ourselves from that situation and think about it through a third person's perception or pretend that you're a third person who's watching that entire situation, maybe that would bring out different perception, different thought process, different conclusions. Then we have alternative understanding. We'll just take the questions, guys. Once we're done with the entire PPT, we'll have a question and answer round. Then maybe we can discuss about all the queries. Then we have an alternative understanding, wherein before blaming, ask yourself to generate at least one situation explanation. That instead of blaming the individual, what could have happened situationally? What could have gone wrong situationally, right? Then effective communication. Instead of assuming, it's always better to ask, hey, I noticed you were late. Is everything okay? It can help a lot. Hey, you didn't reply to my message or you didn't answer my call the other day. Are you fine? Is there something that's going on? So if we do not assume and start asking, that can save relationship and that solves a lot of our problems. In relationships, in workplace, with friendships, with family members, with everybody, right? Just understanding their perceptions and their part of the story. Next is remember the human in every story. That means
हेलो हेलो
everybody.
मिस आई रियली वांटेड टू नो क्या आपके खाने में नमक है?
Okay, I think that is very disrespectful. We are talking about a topic, and you are disrupting the
मिस
flow.
बट आई वांटेड टू नो दैट.
Let's move ahead. Okay, so we were just talking about remember the human in every story, wherein we understand that everybody has struggles. We have our own invisible battles. But when we remind ourselves that they're human beings as well, we soften our judgment, right? We soften the way we perceive them because then we see them for who they are. We consider that okay, the other person is also a human being. They have their struggles, they have their own battles, they have their own ups and downs. So that helps us to give them a benefit of doubt. Next is pause before reacting. So whenever we are reacting, it is often necessary to pause before we give out a reaction. Basically, build a gap. Count till 5 or 10 before labeling somebody. That pause lets us logically catch up with the emotion. That the way I'm reacting, is it entirely my emotion or uh, is it a logical conclusion that I've come to? So that pause helps us to bring in that logicality in our thoughts or in a perception or in a conclusion. Then, last but not the least, practice self compassion, wherein, because if we are harsh with ourselves, with our own selves, if we do not give us enough credibility or enough benefits of doubt, that's the same way we will be with others. So, we should be forgiving for our mistakes. We and that will make us more forgiving to others for their mistakes. So I always say that you cannot bestow others the love that you devoid yourself of. So if you do not give yourself enough love, compassion, you cannot spread it to the world. You cannot share it with individuals. So practicing self-compassion is a very, very important aspect in all dimensions of a life, but in this aspect as well, we should always practice self-compassion. Okay. So now I would like to ask all of you, what will you do when you see somebody is getting bullied? Anybody, please raise your hands. Let's get this conversation going. Let's see how this has maybe changed your perception or not. Yes, Kanvi?
Uh, if it is a situation, we have seen that he or she is bullied, so we can just, I would like to take that person to some other place where she feel safer, and
Mm-hmm.
like making her relax, like by offering a water or something, and then slowly going, like if he or she is comfortable, like what was going out there, and finding a solution. At least since I would be a stranger to that person, like I would suggest him or her to share with the very near one, where can be comfortable, or even she can journal and come to a conclusion.
Right, right. So you will maybe not blame that individual that it is because she's bad, she's getting bullied. You would try to relax him. That's great. Okay, I think Zainab mentioned that I would like to interfere in between and ask about the situation. Yes, okay, understanding what's going on. What else? What else would we do when a loved one is suddenly getting angry? What would we do? Yes, Ramya.
Yeah, in this situation, basically you would gather as much information as you can with regard to that person,
Mm-hmm.
as and the context of the behavior also, rather than solely relying on the first impressions.
Hmm.
As to, maybe ask open-ended questions, get a deeper understanding as to what has made them so upset, or why are they angry. It would be because many a times it so happens that we would be in a very pleasant mood, and we see somebody whom we know, or somebody who is close to us, who is not so in a very good mood. So
Hmm.
we sort of say, take it. It's a very human thing that we think that okay, maybe we got some accomplishment, and we just share it with them, and they don't react, or they don't respond in the manner which you want them to.
Yeah.
So you feel that, okay, they're not happy. Maybe, because for whatever reasons you can attribute it, maybe jealousy, or that this, you can attribute a number of things. But then
Hmm.
rather than that, maybe asking them, because it can be that they had a bad day in their office, or
Yeah.
they got into a tiff with someone for maybe over just a very trivial issue, which
Hmm.
maybe would have sort of gone a bit far.
Hmm.
So it could be that. So rather than attributing it things to yourself, you understand the person in their
Hmm.
context and the behavior as well. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, Radhika.
So if a loved one is suddenly getting angry, I would first offer them a glass of water. But if they
Hmm.
refuse, I'll offer them to basically postpone the conversation we were having and
Hmm.
have that conversation when they are in a better place.
Okay. Correct. Absolutely. Can't we?
Yes. First of all, if my loved one, for example, my father is angry on something, so I'll
Hmm.
just tell him to once calm down, and
Hmm.
I'll give him his time to just be normalized, like to relax himself. Like if he prefer to go for watching a TV or something like on TV, and then like I will be observing him for a certain period of time. If that anger is still existing, since like
Hmm.
he's not emotionally like like he's not too expressive, so I'll
Hmm.
just indirectly by end of the day or after a few hours I'll ask him like what was it about. We can talk about it, and
Hmm.
obviously since I am with him since long, so I will be knowing like if he's comfortable or not, and ultimately I'll observe his behavior, like what is there was there a thing that was done by me that made him angry, so I'll work on that thing, and I'll
Right.
give him his time, like whenever he wants to talk about it. Or
Right. Right.
slowly, I guess I will suggest him that, like, to be just if he trusts somebody else, like the God kind
Hmm.
of thing, so he can have a solution. Because I feel my father do communicate with God, like he find him the God to be most trustable, and he will be at peace with it. And I
Yeah.
will tell him, I know it is very situational, the anger, but it's okay, but it is not good for your health, so we can always talk out whenever you want, even after a year or something. So I would
Yeah.
suggest that in my context.
Okay. Thanks so much.
just like to give them space to speak out what they're angry about or express their anger. First, I would ask them, do you want to speak about it? Do you want to? Because sometimes you should give them room to, like,
Yeah.
if they want to speak about it or not.
Hmm.
Only, and then sometimes they're not ready to speak about it, but they would eventually. So letting
Yeah.
them express the anger rather
Hmm.
than forcing it out of them would be something I would do.
Right. Absolutely. That's great. That's amazing, Leah. So, Miss Sheikh has said, I stand with him or her and motivate them to take a second chance with great consistency. That's amazing. That's great. Looks like we have learned a lot today. So, it is just a small ad break before we conclude today's presentation, right? We will be talking about the benefits of counseling, one-on-one counseling. So, when we talk of one-on-one counseling, it is a personalized, confidential session between a client and a trained therapist. And your trained therapist could not be your friends or parents or relatives because they are not professionally trained to deal with certain matters, and they would also not be able to give you an unbiased opinion. Next, it is for personal growth to gain insights and awareness about your thoughts, perceptions, behaviors, emotions. Problem solving, it is also designed specifically to address certain issues such as anxiety, stress, relationship issues, procrastination, depression, so on and so forth. Then goal setting, when we talk of therapy sessions, they have specific goals which aim at personal and professional goals, personal and professional growth with the support of a counselor. So there are certain misconceptions is that counseling is only for those who are sick, who are mentally unstable, or who are unwell. But in reality, counseling is for anybody and everybody who wants to be a better version for themselves, better for relationships, better for their friends, maybe academic success, career advancement, being more aware and attuned to their feelings and emotions, understanding why is there a thought pattern, a faulty thought pattern. So counseling is for all these reasons, whether you are sick or mentally unstable. Why to choose MindTribe for counseling? Because we have highly trained counselors. Our team consists of experienced and skilled therapists. We have affordable charges. We have sessions that range from rupees 800 to rupees 2400, depending on the seniority and the experience of the counselor. Our initial session, our first session is for rupees 249. So you can experience our counseling services at a very minimal cost. Then we also have packages. We have budget-friendly counseling packages, which are designed for individuals who are looking to invest in mental health, and it is also not too harsh on your pocket. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask before we resume our presentation. You can drop it in the chat box, raise your hands. I'll also be sharing more details with you in the group. Yes, Radhika.
Actually, I had a question from like the first example you gave, the traffic situation.
Mm,
So, in a situation like that, where it's like multiple people in a shared public space, it's a social situation, and someone tries to cut off the traffic. I think there is also an aspect of judgment in play where we think of it as a violation rather than just think of that person as a bad person. So there's also an element of free will that we think that the other person made a choice to behave in a certain way while they could have had just waited out like other people in the same situation. So how do you exactly empathize in such a situation?
I think that the host is just having some network issues. Just give me a second.
Okay, am I audible now?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, there was some network interruption. Radhika, could you repeat what you were saying?
Yes, so I was referring to the traffic example in the beginning of the presentation,
Mm-hmm.
where there is so many people stuck in the similar situation, which is traffic, and
Yeah.
someone tries to cut you off. So there's also like a violation of a social rule. In for
Mm-hmm.
an aspect of judgment, there is also a concept of free will that we
Mm-hmm.
attribute to other people that they made a choice to
Yeah.
purposefully violate a shared social rule, and which
Mm-hmm.
can be seen in communities as well, which
Mm-hmm.
basically leads to more resentment towards that individual. So, how
Mm-hmm.
does this attribution error play out in social situations, and how can empathy be promoted in such situations?
Now, first of all, you said that whenever somebody is trying to break a traffic rule, they're violating, you know, like a social responsibility or like a rule, right? But again, when we say that they're breaking something, they're doing it purposefully, yes, it is a choice. So now we're attributing it to their personality, that they chose to be this way because that is who they are, right? However, the other reasons could be that maybe they're getting late. Maybe the child is sick at the back seat. Maybe they have to reach to the hospital to see somebody. It could be anything. The situation factors could be anything. But yeah, it is also something that sometimes we do not have those factors. Sometimes individuals, as because of their personality, because of who they are, because of their experiences, they chose to do it without, any situation factors. But in here, we're talking about how we as an individual most more than often attribute anything to that an individual's personality rather than the situational factors, right? And when we talk of empathy, empathy is a very simpler trick is just putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. That if I were in their place, why would I have been doing that? What is causing me to do that? What would cause me to do that? Or what could have possibly happened to me to take that decision? That is how we can promote empathy. Did I answer your question, Radhika? Okay. Now, moving ahead, when we talk of Mind Tribe, our motto is empowering minds, transforming lives. We provide counseling services at a rate of rupees 2,400 for 45-minute session, but we also have other rates based on the counselor's seniority. We have affordable packages and various options that can cater to a wide range of needs and preferences. So, as a token of appreciation for your participation, we would be offering three individuals the opportunity for a complimentary consultation. The details would be communicated through the workshop's WhatsApp groups in the coming days. Uh, Dr. Kohli, she's an esteemed founder of MindTribe. She's a distinguished psychologist in India, and she's a four-time gold medalist, a published author, and a recipient of prestigious President of India award. We have affordable counseling packages. We have free group therapies, which happens weekly. And we also have extensive library of self-help tutorials, guided meditations, podcasts, etc. So you can reach out to like through this email or WhatsApp, or you can also reach out to me. This is my number and this is my email ID to book your one-on-one counseling session. Okay? All right. With that, thank you so much, guys, for joining in today. But before we conclude the session, to conclude the session, I would really like to say that as we wrap up here, there's a small practice that we can take into our week, that we can practice on a weekly basis. Every time we catch ourselves labeling somebody negatively, we can pause, write down one possible situational reason for their behavior. Over time, we'll see that how our judgments soften, our stress, there are lower levels of stress and the relationships become lighter. At the end of the day, we need to remember it's not always me versus them. More often, it's all of us versus the circumstances. Thank you so much for being so interactive and so thoughtful today. Uh, so that was it. If you guys have any questions, if you guys have any doubts, please feel free to ask. Raise your hands. Second slide, just a second. You have to go back. I think this is the second slide. Okay. So, do you guys have any questions? Anything that you would want to ask? Anything that you would want to put across? Okay, thank you so much, Vijayapriya. Yes, Kanvi?
Thank you for this session. I do know recently I have faced something like this the topic. I guess it does correlate. So I'll just briefly tell you. Like I was working in a community, right, and I was new there, exactly a month, right, including till today. So since there was some technical issues from my phone, so I was not able to communicate effectively to them, right?
Mhm.
And though I was able to connect to them from my efforts through other social media accounts to kept the work being done, but I
Mm-hmm.
guess their behavior was too impulsive. Uh,
Yeah.
like what I feel is there's a certain way when you can uh, say things. Like for example, right in this situation, there was an abrupt interruption, but you handle it really well and in a very professional way, yet humble,
Mm-hmm.
although you felt it, right? So I have faced the same thing, kind of thing. Like I was working, I was giving my 100%. But since there
Mm-hmm.
was a lack of communication between their own members, the team, uh, like in my absence, and even when I was there was a sessional meeting, and they all just used very rude words of like I'm fine that there was a lack at my side, but obviously the clap happens with two hands and not one, right? And
Yeah.
whenever we are like going into a community, if any new psychologist will come into MindTribe, obviously you all will be the one who will be collectively guiding that person, right? Because your organization will have different rules, regulations, or how to manage things, right? So it is their sole responsibility to guide them, right? So I was having really difficulty in that, but I was trying my best. And since there was lack of communication from that side also, and from my side also because of the technical issue, but I tried my best for the same. But what I felt, the way they told things, like the words they used, not having brains or something like that kind of thing, and even if
Mm-hmm.
in my absence, so that was very distressing. So I just wanted to know about this thing, like if we are going through this thing and somebody is not empathetic to us and impulsive to us, so what you should do, one should do, or like I should be doing. But what I did in my case, I simply told them that I explained everything, that these are the difficulties I was going through, and I will just abruptly leave it, right? So uh, I did that, and I didn't thought that any work of there, because it was coming to my mental health, right? Since I had my other things also, and since it was a voluntary work, and I felt that they were not respecting the speakers, even they were calling. I have observed that behavior, and there was no transparency. Like they are different with in front of us, like their words, intentions, and behaviors were not matching. So that is a very important topic to me, thing to me. If I am good to you, I will be good to you at your face also and behind also. But they had different things, although they are
Mhm.
studying in foreign countries for their PhD, but I felt that they don't have the um, basic human nature that one courtesy one should have. So I felt very I have bragged about it to my many friends, but finally I have made peace with that thing. And since it was a topic like that, so that's why it just instigated, and it has also manifested in my physical health also.
What my intentions are, what I have done, it doesn't really matter what others are saying, what others are thinking. It would affect us less. Yes.
Yes, justified. But there was a situation that I was feeling very discouraged. So just I
Mhm.
took. First of all, I thought it would be wrong that I would leave abruptly because they are a well less member. But the point is this thing, like I like now I has stopped explaining them because I know they are rigid in their thinking and they will behave like that only, gossiping behind the back, the whole team, which is fine if they are doing. I have no problem. But since I had the option of escaping from that situation, I
Mhm.
just went out and I decided that it is something like that I would not support, but at least I came to know that with whom people I can coexist. So
Yeah.
that was it. And I thank you for the advice that you had, that I had to follow my inner being. So thank you
Yeah.
for that.
Thank you so much for sharing, Kanvi. Okay, guys, any other questions? Okay, if not, maybe we can conclude our meeting over here. Thank you so much for being so patient. Thank you so much to everybody who have shared their experiences, who have been very kind and respectful. Have a great Sunday. Bye bye. Take care.